you're going to have this ability to now reframe.
Allow yourself time throughout the day to stress the fuck out.
The thoughts and the feelings and the behavior cycle can start changing.
A big part of weight loss is learning, unlearning, relearning, making changes to the things that you need to eat, but also how your mind works and how you're living. And there's so much to it, which makes our guest today the perfect guest, Dr. Deena Kara Shaffer. She's a learning strategist, best-selling author, founder of Awaken Learning. Hello, welcome. We need you so bad in here.
I'm so happy to be back. Thank you, Gina, and thank you to your amazing community.
So you joined us at the beginning, or actually before we started this fall program, and so many people got so many good takeaways about how to organize the information, utilize the information, and the resources that we provide. So we have the Facebook support group. That's where we have people, real people answering questions. It's where our community is. It's kind of where we gather. It's where I guide people through the program. We also have our app, which is amazing. Definitely different in that it's like it's a perfect complement to doing the Facebook support group, but now people can just use the app on their own. We also have our book, which has all the information and links to videos. We also have our podcast, and there's so much. So you were so great in helping us organize that and make people realize that you don't have to use all of the resources. And then we got into the program. The program started. I know you're very aware of the program. It's a lot of information. So people have been working the basics. We've worked through a big chunk in the first 4 weeks of the program, information-wise. In your opinion, where are we at? And how do you think people are feeling? And how can we better kind of like take a minute and strategize to move forward? That was a lot. I know that's a lot.
I love how your questions are 3 questions. It's so beautiful. It's like this gorgeous, enormous energy of like, let's do all of the things. So good. I'm with you. Yes, let's do all of them. So the starting place for me is always gratitude. Thank you. And also thank you to the kind humans who are listening and for your feedback the first time. My aim is to only ever try to be useful or helpful. And so thanks for having me on, Gina, around that, just before starting, because you're talking all about change and change readiness. Yes. And that begins before we actually start something of like, how am I making sense of all of this? What are the pathways through this? What do I do if it feels like a lot? Yeah. What if I do it feels like it's so much that I don't actually know how to start? And what's the best way for me when someone is presenting this gorgeous buffet of options? What's my route through? And so now people are in it. They're mid-route.
They're in it. Yes, they're in it. Yes.
And so where are people at? I mean, I take the cues from the Facebook comments and from listening to you and Kim do your thing and listening to Spill the Tea. And there are stories of remarkable success and there are stories of frustration.
Yeah.
And so what I wonder, and maybe, I've done this week 4 a few times. I'm in it for the finally and forever, is how do we sit with discomfort?
Oh, good. Yes.
When it's not easy and food we're trying to unlearn isn't our go-to anymore. So how do we do that? And how do we make time and space for ourselves? Because people aren't just doing this journey. They're also parenting. They're growing a business. They're leaving a job. They're starting a new job. They're recovering from illness. They're just learning about a new illness. The world is on fire. There's a lot of things happening.
There is, yeah.
So weight loss and really amplifying our health is happening in a larger constellation, in a larger backdrop. So in a way, that's where I think people are, is how do I do this incredibly important thing, this thing I want with my whole heart in a bigger context? How do I do that thing that is making time for myself? How do I do this thing of, oh, I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to feel like this, but actually it's part of a larger journey. That's a life-changing one.
I love this because I think this is a theme of what we are really learning this group. Like this is our 20th program, and each group, there's kind of a different theme to it. And I think what we're really recognizing is the magnitude of what we're dealing with and what we are trying to accomplish while trying to reach this finally and forever huge, massive goal that a lot of us have been trying to reach for most of our lives. It's such a big thing that we're trying to do while we're dealing with other big things in our lives. And I think a big part of, and what's so great about these conversations is you need to bring awareness to that first. And I think if people can bring awareness to what they're doing and the environment in which they're trying to do it in, and like, you know, whether it's sleep and all the things that are messing with our sleep or our hormones and trying to deal with, like, get a handle on that or whatever it is. I think that that's what I love, is that this is a lot. So you are here today to help us navigate through all of that. So where do we start?
Yeah. So thank you for that. And holy smokes, your like roster of experts listening to Dr. Beverly and base like that. If anyone hasn't listened to that conversation, that's remarkable.
That's a good one.
So
yeah.
Underneath the content, underneath learning about a new relationship with food and a new relationship with our bodies, is about learning a relationship with ourselves. And when we're frustrated and when we're anxious and when we're overwhelmed and when we're avoidant and when we're angry and when we project our anger onto you folks, like what's underneath that? What's underneath that? And how are we going to cope with that? Skillfully move through. So I think about this as change readiness, like understanding what change looks like, the processes of change. So folks have already done the beginning part, which is like that thinking about it. I'm thinking about doing something new, trying something new, or returning members. I'm thinking about doing it again with those fresh eyes, with the beginner's mindset. Okay. And then you led us all through research. Okay. So I moved from thinking to like getting real educated. What is week 1 and what is week 2? What is this week 4? What does it mean to ask the 4 questions? What's my 1 or 2 out of the 20 bigger questions around maximizing? We don't have to do all 20. You keep reminding people, so important. What's the 1 or 2 that's most resonant? And then after research, like what are the actions I'm going to take? What are the actual things? Because we have to move it into the kind of detail, the steps of each day. And then how am I going to stay there for a while? How am I going to kind of maintain those actions on the daily? So I was thinking about like being inspired by Dr. Beverly's beautiful accent, like taking the tram to readiness. So thinking and researching and action, and then maintaining it there for a while. How do I keep showing up? I mean, you are so beautiful at praising folks for, even if there are bits and bytes, even if it hasn't been the perfect day, and let's throw any idea of perfect out the window. Yeah, you're coming back. You're trying again. You're not giving up. You're not throwing it all out. You're not throwing it all away. So thinking about this as a larger process of what does it mean to make change in your life, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's a lot. It's a lot to unlearn, relearn, and learn new things. And it's a bit scary. There's a couple things I want to talk about. One, there's so, like you mentioned, there's so much going on in the world right now, and a lot of people are really, rightfully so, unnerved. It's like it seems to be occupying a big space, at least in my day-to-day, constantly thinking what's happening and being concerned even for people on our team and how people are feeling. It's a lot. So how do you focus? I'm having a hard time focusing on this and also focusing on that. So have you noticed this where people are overloaded, like they are just, they got something else big going on in their life, and then they're trying to show up every day to also do this? Like, how do you reconcile that? Or like, do you have any advice for our members? Like, because right now it's hard, it's tough right now with what people are dealing with and going through and what's happening in the world with Israel and whatnot. And it's a lot. It's very distracting and it weighs on you. And then you're trying to show up every day and accomplish this big goal and learn new things and make major changes with what you're eating and when every day. Like it's tough.
I think what you're asking is so important because it's like not denying the truth of what people are doing. We're not just on a weight loss and health journey. We're also grieving. We're also worried. We're also checking in on family. We're also figuring out how to have meaningful conversations. So a lot is happening all at once. And of course, for folks around the world, like there are so many conflicts happening around the world. So
always,
Well, number one, I think about that it's not either or. It's not that we deny taking care of our health either. We're allowed to take care of our health and care about what's happening in the world. Those can coexist. So I think about alongsideness. Things can be alongside each other and they're not in contradiction. So if we're feeling guilty, how come I get to do this with my day when other people are suffering? Because both can coexist, and actually maybe that helps us move towards peace when I'm kind of embodying peace, when I'm practicing peaceful skills and strategies. So I'd like for people not to think of it as either or, but that they can be and also. And what a perfect opportunity to learn what healthful, deeply nourishing strategies for coping can be that aren't, perhaps like in my case, overeating, overworking, overexercising, undereating. What are the other ways that we can take care of ourselves? And with that self-compassion of, this may not be your strongest week right now. This is a pretty tough one. Right. I will tell you, as I think this is my 4th or 5th group, this September was a tough one for me. Even before the world was even further on fire, the emotional labor of supporting kids in their start to back to school, and as an educator, supporting lots of students and parents through back to school, I couldn't have this at the center. And so I just honored that. I didn't mean, I didn't have to have it go away. I can't, I just can't do Gina. No, I can do a bit of Gina. I can do my best attempt, but also honor that these are big, long days. I'm comforting my kids. I'm helping them transfer to new school. Lots of other things were also alongside. So both can be true. And that's where that gentleness and what does it mean to care? Does caring for your well-being mean more sleep, connecting with friends, like really being forgiving on those super tough days? Does it mean working with that inner dialogue? Does it mean reaching out for a therapeutic ally? What is the kindest, caringest thing that you can do, including doing Gina?
It's really interesting how listening to you speak, it's all really working together. Like, in talking about Dr. Beverly, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. And a lot of times people are wired to that all or nothing. And then when you mention sleep, I'm sure when you're not getting great sleep, that affects your ability to not just perform and do the things that you need to do, but also to learn as well. Like, I'm sure that how you are feeling is affecting your ability to learn and make change and so what do you have, like, I love the whole giving yourself grace and kindness and, recognize where you're at. I think that's really huge. We have people all the time who are dealing with grief, who are dealing with illness, who are dealing with things that are so much bigger than trying to lose weight. But your desire to lose weight, and what I love about the program is it's so much more than losing weight. It's really about prioritizing yourself, getting to understand yourself, connect with yourself, help yourself be as healthy as possible at the end of the day. So I'm showing up and I'm in it, but I'm not I'm distracted and I want to do it, but I feel just overwhelmed. And how do you have strategies for my day to day to keep me in it, to maybe help me focus a little bit more?
I do. And so when I was here, but just as the program was starting, we talked a little and often. And little and often doesn't go away, right? That's making small morsels. But then we can take little and often and move it into the question of, how can I make things easier for myself?
Okay.
How can I make this program the most doable in my life right now? And we do that through creating habits. We do that through automating what we can. And so that might look like, after I brush my teeth in the morning, I flip on either Gina Live or I listen to the podcast for 15 minutes as I am doing a little bit of house cleaning, or I am getting my kids ready for school. Yeah, that sequence always happens. How can I insert doing Gina, whatever that means to do this program? Does it mean accessing the app? Okay, after I get in the car, before I turn it on my drive to work, I'm going to check in with the app, because those other habits are already ingrained. I always get in the car and I always turn it on. So what can I insert? And after a few times or a few weeks of inserting a new activity, that's where it becomes automated. Some take longer, some take shorter, but if we keep repeating it, it becomes second nature and it doesn't have to take so much kind of mental bandwidth. And that's part of what we're struggling right now. When you use the word distraction, our focus is fragmented right now.
Yes.
We're worried and thinking about lots of things. And if we want to do this program, and it sometimes might feel like one thing more or one thing too much, great. How do we make it easier? And we make things easier by automating them and inserting them in already habitual actions. So one way of thinking about it is called habit stacking. We're adding it in or between or before or after an already sequence of habits. And then we don't have to think about it so much. So I have my jar of lemon water every morning. I don't think about it. I had to think about it at first, and now I do not. I do 20 minutes of movement every morning. I had to think about it at one point. I no longer have to think about it. There are certain things I do that I no longer need to, do I do this? Do I not? What do I do? Okay, wait, what am I doing? Nope, I have my rhythm.
Okay, so people get used to doing what they're doing. And with this program, we're always changing that. So I always find after the first 4 weeks, I love it because people get so used to eating nutrient-rich foods and eating often and getting into that routine. So then once we've established that routine, which is why I think people are so resistant to changing it. And so, and I love that because I love that people are eating nutrient-rich foods and they're creating that routine, but we have a goal that we're trying to help people reach. And yes, if they kept doing that, eventually they'd lose their weight, but I know they want to lose it sooner rather than later. So the tweaks are there for a rhyme and a reason. People become very resistant to making the changes week to week after they've established a new routine. So how do we recognize we're doing that? And how can we address that?
Yeah.
Why are people so resistant? They're here to make change. They fall into that routine and they're like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. It's so interesting you're asking that, because I wonder if we can begin to pivot away from the food as being the routine and more like accessing the program, a relationship with the program and a relationship with ourselves that becomes the routine. So it's not my like deep devotion to a particular meal at a particular time. It's around, when am I actually reading the book? When am I doing those 10 pages or 10 minutes? When am I listening to the podcast or am I tuning in live? So that becomes what we routinize. That's what we make the habit. When am I checking in and popping in a question and responding really in an affirming way to another person's journey? Is it on the daily? Is it every Friday? And so we begin to make habits out of the actions more than habits about food.
Woo! This is so huge. It's so huge. It's not about the changes we're making to the food plan. It's the actions that you're taking around it. It's the habits that you're building and creating, because the habit isn't the routine of the food. It's all the other things that you're doing. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah.
So the other thing that I was thinking about in coming here today is there's a line that winds up being spoken a lot here. And it's like a kind of trust the process. And as a person who has had trauma in my life, trust is a complicated word.
Yeah.
Right? So many of us are here, I'm wondering, because we don't necessarily have trust anymore in our bodies. It feels sometimes like there's been a rupture, a fracture with our bodies. Our bodies got bigger even though we ate less. Like there's so many ways that not through it's not fault. It's through a larger system that's so punishing and misleading. And so I've had to work really hard and still have to work really hard around trust. So there's a beautiful gift of a line from a psychologist, Christine Podesky, and I use it with my clients all the time. And it's follow the plan, not your mood. And that's my way of interpreting trust the process, because sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm like, but what if it doesn't work? But what if it won't work for me? But what if the weight does go back up? Like it's not because your program doesn't work. It works beautifully. But it's my whole history that I'm bringing here. It's all my questions. It's all my doubts. It's the way I've been deceived or the way I've been manipulated or taken advantage of through various diet programs and misinformation, through trauma, right? And that severing of trust. So a really helpful backup line, if people are working on that trust, a kind of anchor or a lifeline can be follow the plan. You have a plan laid out. You have a plan laid out, not your mood. Why not your mood? Because our moods change every day. Our moods are in grief. Our moods are in absolute desperate fatigue because our kids were up last night. Mood because it's September and everything begins so alive all at once again. And we were just in some kind of sweet moment in the summer, maybe.
Yeah.
There's so many things that affect our mood. Menopause, pregnancy, after pregnancy, depression, anxiety. There's so much. Foods affect our mood. So our mood and like, do I want to do this today? Even though you have a larger want, a larger motivation, a larger aim and goal and dream, on this particular day, you may be like, I don't want to. I don't want to, or this isn't going to work. Wait, we follow the plan, not our mood. We follow the plan, what it says this week. And we don't actually have to give too much thinking. I'm not saying we turn our questioning off or our really like our critical minds. But if that's not helping us, and if it's actually a storytelling, like of all the reasons it's not going to work, we're feeding the wrong thing. So can we follow the plan and not our mood?
Well, and that doesn't mean ignore your moods and how you feel, like honor how you feel. I think there's always times where, you know, whether it's COVID or what's happening now with Israel, it's there's always something, or it's a loved one passes away, or you're dealing with a traumatic event. There's always something that makes weight loss so trivial. Like it just makes it seem like, really, I'm trying to lose weight here while this is going on. But there was a reason why you are here. And again, this isn't just some crappy, shitty diet where you're starving, depriving yourself, trying to fit your ass into your jeans. You're really trying to make real, long-lasting change in your life, which is going to have a massive trickle effect on the rest of your life and everyone in your life, and how you navigate through life, and how you manage and deal with these things that are happening in our lives, and it's just, it gets very difficult to remember why you signed up and why you're here in the first place when, things like this in life happen to us. And so I love that kind of just follow, you sign it, you want this, keep following the plan, but at the same time, honor your mood, do the little things that you can do and just kind of keep it moving forward. I see you have James Clear's book there, Atomic Habits, in the back. And that's, I wish there was a way we could show people that the little things that they're doing are adding up. And I hate to say it, but there are going to be more tough times in your life coming up, and traumatic events and things you're going to have to deal with. And with this process, because of amazing guests like you, we're acquiring the skills to navigate them in a way that has less impact physically on us. Because stress is really detrimental to our health. A lot of us get really broken down through, traumatic things that are happening in our lives. And then it means that, we're not our healthiest. And then it means that other people have to take care of us. And it's got to, so it's a lot, I know, but I love this. Follow the plan, not the mood, or follow the plan, honor your mood. And also, like, but is there something to be said about people maybe if they just feel like they can't? Like, are there some situations where you've dealt with people and you just like this, right now is maybe not the time for you to try to learn this, and maybe you do need to step back, or do you really feel like you can do both?
It's interesting. I guess it depends on how you perceive this program. So sure, this is a weight loss program, I guess, but it's also like, how do you actually hear the feedback of your own body? How do you make choices around water, sleep, stress interventions, connecting with others, emotional harm, everything everything you live with.
Yeah.
So are we to say that all waits? For sure, it might not be center stage. But I can tell you that when in the hardest moments now, I don't stop drinking water. I
Mm.
don't I don't say, well, I can't possibly put some seeds on my salad. I need to fuel my body to take care of my children. I need to take care of rest as best I can because I'm in service of other people. And so I don't want my brain space to be taken out with shame about what I ate or worried about what I look like, or
Yeah.
I don't want any of that. I want there to be maximum space to be helpful to others.
So maybe changing the focus, your focus or your why, like you have your big end game why, but your why can change. Maybe your why this week is to just stay as strong as you can, physically, mentally. Maybe your why is just to get through this week without having the
Totally.
stress take you over, your emotions overwhelm you, so you
Totally.
can still keep going. I think your why and that sort of short term, we always look at this big why. Your why can change almost week to week, and then maybe last week it was, feeling good for this wedding you have coming up, and this week is just like, you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
just keep going. And, maybe you don't have an end game, or I don't have the capacity for that right now, but at least it's to stay healthy and to take care of yourself when you're
Yes.
dealing with a lot.
Full permission to take care of ourselves also
Mm.
in the midst
Woo.
of heartache, full permission. A good friend of mine gave a wonderful image to me. And she said how she thinks about the self-care, whatever we mean by that. And it doesn't have to be some like bougie luxury spa that only, like 1% of people can do. I mean, self-care can be the simplest thing, like lying down on the floor when you're tired
Yeah.
with your legs up the wall. That's my
Yeah.
version. That's
Yeah.
my version of self-care.
I hear you.
And so she said, sometimes we think about taking care of ourselves as, okay, so I have this cup and I've given everything I can, like it's entirely empty. And now I fill it back up. And she's like, I think we've got it all twisted. I need to make sure my cup is full to the point of overflowing. And then I have enough to give other people. So is this program a weight loss program? Yes, but it's also an inner resourcing program. It's how do we act, what are our inner resources? Are we exhausted? Are we always running on empty? Do we forget that we have bodies? Do we forget that we need hearts and minds that need tending to?
Yeah.
So that's the place of this program in my life, is that actually, even in the hardest moments, I don't forget that I'm here too.
About yourself. Yeah. Prioritizing. I always say the hardest thing about this program is prioritizing yourself. And that doesn't just mean take time to eat or take time to eat nutrient rich foods. It is like meeting yourself where you're at, recognizing what you need, trying to get better sleep, not for the sake maybe of weight loss and moving down the scale, but because you need sleep in order to function, and keep your immune system nice and strong and all of those things. Right. Is there something to be learned? So this happens a lot. So we're downsizing right now. And what's going to happen is at the end of this week, because people are nervous about making this change, it's bringing up all sorts of feels. And it's such a simple thing to do. Just nothing changes. Just leave yourself, feeling slightly unsatisfied as opposed to satisfied. Leave a few bites on your plate. I mean, I'm oversimplifying. It's very simple, but very complex at the same time. So then what happens is people go through the week, and at the end of each week, they reflect back and they say, I could have done that better. Should I go back? Should I repeat? How do we prevent not feeling like that? Is there anything we can do? Is there anything you can tell people? Because it happens. So many people come Monday are going to be like, now looking back, I could have done this so much better. Should I go back? And of course we don't go back in the program. We just keep moving forward. And I always say, recognize where you're at, learn what you learned from last week, and then make sure you're all in next week. But there's got to be something better to tell people.
I don't. So number one, we can only ever say a sentence like that. I could have done better at the end. Was it not the
Yeah.
truth that on each of those individual days and individual meals and snacks that you were in fact doing the best you can? So in part, it's a bit of a data gathering problem. Like, what data are you gathering? Because if we went back and Tuesday you had to pick up your kid and they were sick, or you were taking care of somebody in a hospital, or the world fell even further apart, like it's okay that in retrospect it looks like that, but what are the other data points that you can gather that actually help tell a more balanced story? And then I would ask,
I love that.
what's the actual voice? Who's the narrator of that I could have done better? Because I'm going to guess it's that like angry football coach, that kind of relentless, real tough critic. But what would happen
Yeah.
if you translate it into kind granny? That granny not
Ooh.
say like, good for you despite the shit of this world and the challenges of this week. Oh my God, look what you did do.
Look what you did do.
Like, look what you did do. So that's real. The voice,
Yeah.
the voice. Let's have a little bit of choice or awareness about the voice, and also how beautiful everyone is. Like, you get to do it again. So if it's really the truth that you could have, and now we might embark on saying it in a kinder way, like in a more understanding way, then awesome. Make note of what 3 things. Don't leave it at I could have done better. What could have been better? Let's actually make it concrete. Is it that dinners were the real challenge because you were so exhausted in the day, and by the end of the day, we were trying to kind of tune into that willpower, and willpower always depletes by the end of the day? Like, what is it we're turning to by the end of the day? Or was it that you forgot? Sometimes I would forget. The first time I did the program, I was like, I could have done better because I forgot. Great.
Yeah.
Post-it note on the fridge being like, remember, it's before. What's the theme? Great. So what's the thing that you actually could have been better? Or is it just a cycle of I'm always hard on myself and I'm just doing that hard on myself thing? If it's true, what couple of like personal tweaks can you make to when this actual tweak comes around again? And awesome. Like, then great. But if you're just on autopilot being like, I could have done better with this, I could have done better than that. Well, what a great opportunity for reflection of that like unkind, unrelenting football coach.
Is that when you work with people, is that I would imagine that's one of the things that you deal with, is that just that negative. I mean, we deal with negative dialogue all the time in here, but like when it comes to learning and like feeling like, I know you're working with our daughter Taryn, just like this, I can't do it. It's hard to learn. It's, it's like a block of some sort. Like, is that what's the hardest thing that you deal with when trying to help people learn new things?
Yeah. Oh, well, that second part is like we could be here for a while. The hardest things, shame. The shame people feel about asking, like saying, I don't really know how to do this, and giving full permission for like, it's really okay. And I can help you learn that. The other thing is people feeling so lonely, as if like the thing that they're feeling, it's only them that's feeling it. And like, that's why all the gratitude for your community, because it's such a clear reminder. It's so visible how much we all struggle and wrestle in quite overlapping ways. I mean, I could go on and on with the things that people struggle with attention, with like, I want to do this, but I also want to do this. I also want to do this. And that's very difficult because there are so many distractions, both enormous and catastrophic, and also just like gadgetry and entertainment in our own lives. And I hope I get to chat one day about this with you, because I think it's its own time, but prioritization. We talk about prioritization as if it is simple, whether it's a client who's like in, grade 11 student, or whether it's somebody in college or university, whether it's a leader I'm working with or a whole team. Prioritization is difficult, and nobody talks about it as being difficult. Why is it difficult? Because we're taught that the things that are most important are things that are urgent. What has to happen now? What's coming due? And then importance, but usually importance to someone else. Oh, I've got this thing at work that's really important. Oh, I've got to do this for my kid because it's really important to them. There are many what's importance that are all coming at us all at once, which is back to your first question. How can we be doing Gina when the world is as it is?
Yeah.
Because it is one of many priorities. I need to take care of my community. I need to tend to my family. And also, it's okay that I need to tend to my physical and emotional health. It's okay. It's okay to be rested and in grief. It's okay to be deeply, deeply worried. And also, they can all coexist.
That was so great. I think when you were talking about shame and loneliness, I'm thinking of all the people in the program who've ever, they reach out, but they don't ask for help. And I'm just thinking of the people who like, this is hard or this is whatever. And I think with this, it's like so much of that is the shame people feel even asking for help or asking for clarity, or that maybe they're not doing all the things, but there's reasons why they're not doing the things. And they don't really recognize that that's just okay. And it's just the loneliness of, we're so in our heads and not sharing that with people because we're overweight, or because people perceive us that we're not trying, or the things haven't worked. And I'm just thinking about all the times that people have reached out, and I call it planting seeds of doubt, where people are like setting themselves up for failure. But more than that, they're not just doing that. They could very well be asking for help but try, do you know what I mean? If they feel shameful and they feel alone, and that shame, I would imagine, is going to prevent people from asking for the help that they need, because they also feel very alone in that.
Yes. And I love that. And I love the tenderness of all of this, because people might not even know what to ask.
Mm.
So that like earliest moment is, this is hard. And that is kind of my question. Or I grew up in a family where I couldn't ask questions. Or like we come with these full contexts, and then we arrive here, and maybe the best we can do is like, I'm overwhelmed, and that's okay too. And there's no shame. So is the next step then, what can I do about my sense of overwhelm? Or what is overwhelm made of? Like, is overwhelm because it feels like a lot of information, or it feels like a lot of people, or it feels like a lot of access points? Can we begin in the kindest way that allows for that overwhelm? We don't need to deny any of it. Can we just like tease it apart enough so that we can see kind of possibilities of getting in there? Because maybe we can't ask a question first. We don't even know how. We don't even know what the words are to ask the question. But I can say, this is hard. You're right, it is hard.
Yeah. That's been I used to say that weight loss was so easy, right? Because it's just like, you do this, your body responds like that. I've laid it all out for you. And another theme I've been really owning is, it is hard. I'm coming to realize it's hard, not because of what you need to eat and when every day, but because of everything else that you need to work through when you're really doing it, all the feels. And then on top of that, with everything that's happening in the world, and the heaviness of that, and taking on all of that, it's very hard, because again, we're trying to make such a personal, life-changing change that only we can do for ourselves. And it is hard. That's my weight loss is hard should be our new mantra. I don't think it's a great sell.
I mean, it's not a perfect hook, but it's honest. It's hard. It's not linear. It's not one thing. It's not like a single like action or food that you eat or don't eat. It's not one thing.
I want to read this comment. It's so hard to be vulnerable when you've spent a lifetime building a wall.
Yeah.
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 That's a lot.
So
Okay,
that's part of what you do, Gina, right? Is like, maybe we can be a tiny bit less armored here. maybe we can just be a tiny bit less armored and share the thing that is hard. Is it hard because your family looks one way and you look another? Is it hard because of all the things you heard growing up? Is it hard because of that football coach that's over and over? Is it hard because you now have to kind of do meal times a little differently or do celebrations differently? Is it hard because actually the underneath thing is like, I really need to see a therapeutic professional. I need to see this is like, that's actually the thing that's underneath. The list is not exhaustive. There's, for as many people here who are participants in your program, there are backgrounds, journeys, and reasons why we're here.
Yeah. Okay. Well. This was the conversation today. I'm absolutely here for it. I think it's just such a. I mean, this is it. This is the conversation. This is the conversation at the end of the day. Final takeaway from today?
I think for me is, yes, this is a program about our relationship with food, but it's really about our relationship with ourselves. And ourselves are in communities and are in the world. And so full welcome, full invitation to an all that you are carrying and holding and helping to continue that relationship with yourself too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being a learning strategist, I would imagine, just to kind of frame this for people, this is about learning about what you've been through, who you are, where you want to go, how to find resources and utilize tools to do that, learning how to navigate, the day-to-day in your life, all of it. You have this beautiful book, Feel Good Learning. It's just how to prioritize, focus, study, and learn everything better. Where can people get their hands on this?
Thanks, Gina. Like for all the people watching, Gina, you were so kind about uplifting and including other folks who are trying to leave it all on the dance floor in this short little life and be in service with their gifts or their, what they're trying to do. So thank you for asking that. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. Trying to get it in Indigo. It's easiest is Amazon around the world. And it's for anybody who's trying to learn anything. I'm trying to make a space for that. On the one hand, I know learning strategies, like what is that? It's the learning and unlearning underneath all the things we're trying to do, whether it's formal school or a transformative life program.
I was just going to say, you are redefining learning. That's what you are doing and what it's all about. Thank you so much for your time today. Honestly, I'm already excited to have you back. Thank you for your passion for the program. Thank you for your time this morning. I know people are going to ask where to reach out to you. It's Awaken Learning. I know on Instagram, do you have a website where people can reach out?
Thanks, Gina. It's awakenlearning.ca. And if you have, a school-aged kid from grade 5 to university to postdoc to college to a certificate program, if you are that, work with many adult clients. We have a remarkable, very humane team trying to help do this learning thing differently, like with less shame.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you again.
Thanks,
Bye.
Gina.